Stripe's mission, as you know, is to grow the GDP of the internet. How does design play a role in that mission?
Well, I think it might be biased, but a pretty important role. And the reason why behind it is if Stripe can build powerful tools, powerful products to enable entrepreneurs around the globe to build better businesses, that's what can drive progress across the globe and help people gain access and kind of facilitate prosperity. However, an important piece in building a powerful tool is that it has to be usable. People have to understand how to engage with it. It has to feel intuitive. It has to feel, that it actually meets your mental model, how to interact with it. And if that doesn't, then you don't get to benefit from the power. Like imagine like a power drill that you can't actually like pull the trigger on, right? And then the other part of that, in terms of design and making something feel more usable and more approachable is also, do you want to engage with it? So we aim to build tools that people want to have a part of their business infrastructure, and then be able to get the most power out of them because they're so easy to use. So the design team plays a pretty big role in that, and that we can inform the work that engineering and product management and data science and the marketers do to build our better products, and then help to envision what those look and feel like and how they work.
So you said you help to inform the role of engineering and product. And you, as the head of design at Stripe, do you sit across design across all of those different organizations?
Yeah, so the design organization at Stripe is comprised of multiple parts. About half of it is focused on the product. And so the product designers, content designers, and researchers work hand in hand with engineering and product in the various areas. So we have people that are dedicated to our billing products. We have people that are dedicated to Connect or dedicated to developer tools. And these different functions are thinking all day, every day about those areas and working really closely with engine product. And what I mean by informing is that we have part of our organization is the research team who spends all day, every day talking to users and trying to better understand what they're looking for and how to make our products speak better towards what their mental model might be or what they're looking to get out of it. And then designers are working constantly to try to find what might be the best way to solve that problem. And so that's very much a back and forth and hands-on work with the engineers and the product managers. The other part of the design work is focused mostly in kind of like our marketing and our storytelling and helping people better understand what our product suite is. And so that's things like Stripe.com or the advertising that we do or the communications that we do, and also things like Stripe Press and the books that we print and the ideas that we're trying to bring to market in many ways.
You mentioned something there about problem solving, and I've heard you say before that the process of design is often about problem solving. I think that's really interesting because as a developer, that's exactly how I would describe the role of a developer is about problem solving. Like in an interview for a new member of the team, the main thing I would want to look for is, are they a good problem solver? More than like, can they code?
Right.
So how do you see these two functions working together if they have this common ability to problem solve? Does that help? Must it, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think, at root, we're craftspeople, right? We have our craft and it might be a slightly different media that we kind of like express our craft through. But I think there is definitely some commonality into, the approach. And I do think that's often why designers and engineers get along so very well. And I think the problem solving part also, as I sort of boil down design to like the bare minimum, it's really about just moving with intention and thinking about, what is the thing trying to solve, right? Like that glass, when somebody was designing that glass, like they had to consider several things, right? Like, is it meant to ever fit in a cup holder? It has to fit in the human hand. If it's too tall or too top heavy, it's going to fall over. Well, how was it produced? Can you get it out of the mold that's holding it? How long is it going to stand up? The material choices. Is it going to look nice?
Is it easy to wash?
Is it easy to wash? All of these things, it's intentionality. Right. That is design. And similarly, when an engineer is thinking through how are they going to go about solving that problem, I hope they are bringing that same level of intentionality as to like, is this code going to be readable by somebody else? How hard is this going to be to maintain? Is it going to work well among the other suite of products? Is this actually going to, solve the problem in the most efficient way possible? It's kind of same thing, different media.
Do you think the AI tools that we're starting to use more and more for design and for coding have the same intentionality or some sort of intentionality?
I think so. I would imagine there's just as many examples as we're not, right? But certainly, I think the AI tools that we're already able to use are just wonderful. There's so many fantastic things that are speeding up different parts of the process. But I also don't want to over rotate on it. It's not like, we just offload it all. It's it's done, and you should be able to whip up code and never read it and just ship it. Like, that's probably dangerous at this point. We want to make sure that we're checking it for our own intentions. I mean, part of it is also like we're still trying to speak to the machine. The machine is better at speaking with us now in our own language, but still, it's about kind of like setting up the right context of what you're looking for. And so, for example, getting that like more intentionality of how the code that the AI helps you write, does it have enough knowledge about the actual environment that you're coding into? Same thing with design. Like, I can use an AI tool to whip up a screen for me that maybe solves some of the problems, but what if it's not using the design system in the right way? And then what that causes is a user, let's say, is going from one part of the product into another screen. So like talking about the Stripe dashboard, for example, you come into the Stripe dashboard, you're on the home screen, and then you want to click into Connect. Well, what if we started using an entirely different design system once you got into Connect, and then when you go over into the billing section? So then you have to learn a new way of essentially understanding the product. It's like, oh, well, I thought like the large bold titles meant this was like a new section, but now it's like a completely different thing. Yeah. So we're trying to, just like what we do with humans as well as with the AI, is make sure that it is, fits at home among the system, because I think the core here is that no user, no person experiences a product in isolation. There's no part of our product that someone's just going to look just at that, right? There's always they got an email that, jumped them into the dashboard. They're in the dashboard, and then they go from one screen to the next. And, now they're going back over to the docs. And now they want to, come over into, back into the workbench, whatever it might be. They're moving between these things. And so thinking about coherency between those is a key component to actually building a great product, is actually like the coherency in the journey. And that's where, any tool that you use, AI or otherwise, might not have that same knowledge about that. And it's part of the figuring it all out.
I suppose if you take that out even further, right, there's no real developers or teams that are building just with Stripe. They're building with other tools as 100%. Well. So they have to have a commonality. Yes. So they can apply some knowledge from this to the other thing, right?
Yes. Yeah, that is a very good point. Yes, there is always something more in the ecosystem that's relevant to the user's context.
But shifting gears slightly, the way when this is my 1 year anniversary of Stripe, actually. Ooh. So I was here in this. Thanks very much. I was here in this office 1 year ago, and I was trying to understand on my onboarding who are the users and I guess the customers of Stripe. And see, it's easier said than done, I think. But I think, a year later, I would boil it down to 3 different users. There's developers that are building integrations with Stripe. There's merchants that have sort of applications on Stripe. And then those merchants have customers that are also, to some degree, using Stripe, right? So there's sort of 3 different types of users or customers on Stripe. Mm-hmm. How do you design for each one of these users to be able to interact with the various products and websites and documentation when they're all wanting different things from their interaction?
Yeah. I was intrigued when you said 3. I was like, really? How did you boil that down?
This is just me,
Yeah, no, it's a very good, kind of high level summary. But of course, the reality is like there are so many flavors within that. We are also seeing that, within the dashboard, let's say the merchant, which is, or the business essentially that we are working with, and they are a customer of Stripe. They have many different roles within their organization. So maybe it's somebody from the support team, maybe it's somebody from the payments team, maybe it's a developer, maybe it's a non-developer, or maybe it's the CEO that's at a small startup wearing many hats, or an individual of a large enterprise, and they have actually only one piece of the entire multi-entity business. So anyway, I'm not trying to say like, oh boy, the job is so hard, but there are a lot of different users, and they all have different needs. And even the same individual can have different contexts. Like we know developers that are occasionally like they don't want to code just because they can. Maybe the faster way to get there is to not code at all. And so what is that experience for that individual at that time? How to do it? I mean, I think there's a lot of things constantly at tension. And, that's maybe the fun of the work as well. It's just to think about, how can we make the dashboard a place where, all of those different types of users feel at home, but also, again, feel like that they have a power tool at their disposal. And so what is the most powerful tool for one can be, it's hard to make it that same thing for everyone. A couple of the ways that we've tried that been continuing to evolve that, as you're familiar with, is that, we've built developer tools within the dashboard in places where we can, hope to give it more space and breathing room and give developers heightened focus. So what I'm talking about, of course, is Workbench.
Yeah.
We don't want the developer experience to feel bifurcated across different surfaces or feel like it's, locked in the corner of a small piece. There's a moment where you want to, be able to take over the canvas with it. But then there are also places where we want to just make the UI do a lot of the heavy lifting and make it, a quick and visual experience. So for example, workflows that we recently launched as a approachable tool for anybody with a varied set of skills. We want to have pathways that are opinionated, but not, what would be the word, but not one way. It's almost like strong opinions loosely held. So, we try to have strong calls to action. Like when, let's say you're setting up billing for the first time, we want to make clear what's each next step. But we also recognize that different, users are going to have different approaches depending on their ecosystem or their skill set. And so there's not one way to do it. There's one recommended way to do it. And so we try to, emphasize that in many cases in the product. I think the other place that, we actually shipped this not too long ago was the new navigation in the dashboard. A big driver behind that was to make the suite of products more accessible to a broader set of users. And what we were seeing was that user satisfaction was less for different non-technical users.
Oh, right.
So users from finance teams or support teams, and maybe they didn't have the developer skill set, and so they were actually less familiar in the dashboard, and they were less comfortable and had less satisfaction. And our previous nav, this was before your time, there was a horizontal bar across the top with the different products, and then if you wanted to get to a product that was within a product, so within billing, there's a number of other things like invoices, for example, or in Connect, there's a number of things that you might want to go to. You had to click in first to see it.
So you have to know that sits within that product family. Yeah.
And there was a lot of hunting and pecking, and there's no word that's going to be perfect for everybody, right? And as much as we try. And then there was also 4 levels of nav. It was a bit of a mess. So we cleaned that up, and now it's hopefully something that just feels so common because it's been out for a little while, but it's on the left side, and it has our products like Connect or payments there, and you can open them up and see what's in there, and you can more easily access them. Our core objects like customers and transactions are always easy to find up top, and you get your shortcuts. All of that was to try to make it more accessible to a number of different users, depending on, however technical they might be. And it actually did help to improve people's usability and also ability to discover the products that are there. It's sometimes we're in our own way. They don't even know about the tools that we might have for them because it's so hidden under bad design.
Yeah.
So we've been trying to clean that up.
I'm always surprised when I speak to product managers at Stripe that are surprised that customers might not know about their product.
Yeah.
Because that's their world, right?
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of the customers that are using our product, they're getting in there. They have a task that they are doing, and they're it's amazing to watch somebody in the dashboard or moving between the integration and what they're trying to accomplish. And they're very focused on that. So we don't want to be shooting ads at them, telling them to go check out that thing. And they're also not just going to like, let's browse the dashboard and see what other products I don't know. So we have to find the right moment to make that connection. And one of the most valuable ways we found is like when we can also provide insight, like, did you know that instant payouts actually could help you because of this, this, and this? We've seen that with other businesses like yours. Those are the moments that it's like the most powerful to be able to bring to light some of that work, and just like making it fit within someone's mental model is how best to, like, help them see where it is.
Is there any way you can measure if something is improving in people's mental model, or if the ROI is getting better when you're building like that?
Yeah, so there's a number of ways, we measure. I mean, unsurprisingly at Stripe, we obviously measure a lot of things. Yeah. We're data hounds. But the one key way to answer your question is a thing we call PSAT, or product satisfaction. Mm-hmm. So a lot of companies do CSAT, customer satisfaction, as do we. Very important. And what that does is it's asking a customer how they feel about Stripe overall. It's kind of like, how do you feel about
like literally how they feel?
Yeah, yeah. There's like a number of questions that we ask, but like, we're trying to understand like more of their sentiment. And it would be like asking you about how do you feel about your car? It's a different question when we're asking like, well, how do you feel about the rear view mirrors of your car? And that's where what we realized is that CSAT wasn't enough to really understand how they felt about individual products. And so, 2 years ago, I forget exactly how long ago, we shipped what we're calling PSAT, product satisfaction. And so what it is, it's like a miniature CSAT for each major product area. And we basically survey users at key points in their journey using those products. So like if you're in the dashboard and you're using our billing product, maybe you're setting up meters or usage-based billing, and we'll ask you how that's going. And we have built the survey around the goals of the jobs to be done for the product. So it's not just like, how do you feel about billing, but like, is it, are you able to set this thing up quickly, or whatever, the 5 key things are for that. And then we survey folks about it and can see, how they're feeling about it this week, this month, this year, quarter over quarter. And it's really helpful, especially to get like constant feedback, because it helps us understand too, like, oh, we just did that major launch, like people are more satisfied, that seemed to have worked, or perhaps maybe there was a regression. We also can see, there's certainly changes seasonality wise. There's, definitely differences that we can see based on the user's, proficiency with technology or not. And so we learn a lot from these different ways of surveying, and that like heightened understanding by product, I think, is also, kind of what gives it a little bit more kind of granularity in the understanding than a CSAT would.
So does your team also have impact or kind of say in the design of the user experience as well with Stripe products?
What do you mean by that?
For example, a lot of developers would not maybe want to use the dashboard. Maybe they're just building with APIs and they want a nice, easy way of being able to do that. Do you monitor that? Do you have some say in how you reduce friction there?
Yes, I view the design as kind of like all the pieces coming together, right? It's like everything from how do you first learn that this exists and how you see it in your life, how do you get to know it, how do you start going with Stripe in all the different ways that you might. And just like you said in your original, like, these are the different types of users we have, like we have to think about all of our different types of users. And so we actually have designers that are dedicated to the developer experience. They are all developers themselves. Right. And, they spend a lot of time with our developer users to understand, like, what is the experience that makes sense for you? How are you using the dashboard or not at all? How are you using Docs? Like, what other things outside of Stripe are you using to get going with your products and continue to monitor and work with them? And so, I would say absolutely that is a part of the work and trying to find ways to do that better. And in fact, today we do not have PSAT for that experience, but we are working on spinning that up. So,
nice.
It would be very good to have it, yes.
Yeah. I read a little bit about your background, and so you've been to some hyper growth companies as leading design, right? In Lyft, and was it Airbnb? And now Stripe, obviously. Are there any lessons that are kind of consistent across all 3 of those roles that you can sort of share?
Yeah, my experience at Airbnb, Lyft, and Stripe are interesting to look at it in composite, because I think one of the key themes that were a part of all of them, and clearly a part of my decision to join, was a deep user focus.
Right.
And whether it's a financial infrastructure serving businesses, or whether or not it's Airbnb guests and hosts and traveling, that like fixation on trying to do something great for the user is like, I think, what makes those companies great, makes those companies successful, and makes them places where I want to be. And they're all different approaches, right? Airbnb is founded by a designer or designers, Joe and Brian, and I think they've just like imbued that into everyday work of just like how are people thinking really intentionally about their decisions, and so that they can make something that feels really great at the end of the day for those hosts and guests. And while, John and Patrick may not have that same background, they have a very, very similar approach to their expectations for, kind of commitment to great, meticulous craft being one of our operating principles. And I mean, I really do appreciate the fact that like users first is our first operating principle, and you really feel it. I feel like in few companies could say they are, I think, quite so user focused. And I always mention that to people when I'm interviewing, because it's like, no, we really mean it. There's like not a project that goes by that we're not asking, like, have we thought about, like, have we talked about, really understanding who the user is in this situation and what they're trying to accomplish. And I think why that's so important is like, I am not a, CFO at a marketplace business, or, a head of payments at a startup. Like, I am not our users, but if I'm going to do my job well, I have to deeply understand what they're experiencing, so that I can like better bring that to the experience. So I appreciate that that's like something that we try to really ingrain at Stripe. And part of it is using the product ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's also something that, we can't take for granted. Just because we're in it all day and we're working on it and we're, polishing it up and shipping it, like, doesn't mean that we know it like our users do, unless we actually, get to know their experiences and, put their shoes on and walk through the product. We call it like walking the store, which I'm sure you do yourself and are very aware of. But like, going through the steps that somebody might, going from that email into the dashboard, into the docs, or whatever it might be, and really feeling that firsthand is so illuminating as to like, actually, like, was what we had in mind and what we thought we were designing and putting into the world, is that how it's living today? Things over time, they kind of like creep in, issues creep in. It's almost like fruit flies, like how they just seem to come out of nowhere.
Sure, yeah.
That's like bugs. They come out of nowhere unless you're really paying careful attention and coming back to that product. So, we try to make that a part of the everyday as well.
It's really interesting how you have this kind of high level, big picture of being intentional and what makes good design. But there must be a real skill in how you like convert that into tactics to implement that. Do you have any kind of advice on how you take your sort of broad definition of what is good design and how you can actually apply that in such a high growth organization?
Yeah, one of the things that has been interesting at Stripe, where I would say people are hired because they have high expectations and have like take a lot of pride in making something great. We still have to make sure we're on the same page as to like, what does quality look like? What does quality mean? And the reality is like, there's some aspects of it that are subjective. And so, having that shared understanding, I think, can like enable teams to make decisions faster, and, enable, kind of disseminating decision-making if we can get on the same page. And so we have, kind of worked hard to try to define what quality is. And it's a constant evolution, I think, as we, learn more and get more examples under our belt. But the way we talk about it is power, craft, and beauty are like the three major components of a high quality product. So power being, of course, as we kind of started this conversation, it's about like, does the product actually solve a problem? And that is step number one, right? Like, we're not making art here. As much as I love art, we're making products. We're making products, tools that are supposed to help somebody. So let's make sure they do that first before we waste any more time thinking about like, how nice it looks.
Right.
But then the second piece is craft. And so we talked about that as well at the beginning, is that if it's not usable, doesn't matter how, powerful it is. So it's like a chair that like holds you up, sure, but if you can't sit in it for longer than 20 minutes, like not really that great of a chair. And so we try to make our products highly intuitive, and it just like makes sense, like what that next button is, how it takes you to the next space. And I think that's a big part of that, like kind of walking the store and doing the journey. Never look at, just your thing in isolation. You want to see it in like the fullness of the experience that it fits within, and then get this understanding of that context, and really try to ask yourself, like, does it actually make sense if I, make that the next step, and that's going to connect to here, and that's going to pull from information over there or not? Like, is it going to move fast? Is it going to do the things it needs to do? And then third, beauty. So we prioritize beauty as one of the key parts for a number of reasons. One, beauty actually makes things more compelling and actually easier to use. Like, people want to engage with something that's more beautiful, and they're probably going to spend a little bit more time with it, which means they're going to understand it a little bit better. Like, that's, almost reason enough. But the second piece is also like when you can see that something has been like labored over and like has like thought and care behind it, and somebody put intentionality into every little ounce of it. It also helps you understand, like, wow, they probably have also thought about everything else too. And so it builds trust, and it helps reassure you that we've got, the details under control. And so all three of those pieces are critical to come together. And to your point of like, so how do we like tactically go and act on that? There's a number of things. One, I would say like hiring is number one, right? Okay. Like, there's no amount of like tools or processes or like guidelines that we could write down that would work unless, we invest in people that just bring a whole lot of pride to their work. And are, trying to do the right thing for their users at the end of the day. I think that's like first and foremost. And I think, as you were asking about like hypergrowth companies like that I've been a part of before, I think that was also like a part of the importance. And, even when you're, you feel like, the wind is in your sail and your product is growing and your user growing and you got to grow your team, like not making fast and silly changes to team growth and just being really intentional with each hire makes the world of difference in everything else you do. But so, really investing in that great talent. And then, yes, like tools and processes can help, right? So we have a design system, SAIL, which is both design and engineering, right? So it is components that are, a designer can see in Figma, but can then immediately be put into code for the products that we're building. And so that cohesion helps us move a lot faster as we're creating things, and increase quality because it enables greater consistency across the things that we're building.
Is this a Stripe in-house built system? Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. And it's like constantly in evolution, right? Because the component library will never be done, right? Like, we're constantly coming up with like, wow, now we need a thing for meters. Like, we didn't have meters before. So how do we do that now, right? Or workflows, like what are those like components going to be? So we keep adding to it and evolving it because, it's always in tension. Like, you don't want to slow teams down with like, everybody's got to be on the same components, but everybody's got to be on the same components. So how do we do that quickly? And then there's a number of things. We have like guidelines for how we write. Obviously, words are very important in Stripe's products and our docs and our APIs. So we take that very seriously, and we have a number of ways we do that. And of course, LLMs to help us now too. And then, there are things in the process where we, I think a key part that I had already talked about is having, designers embedded in the teams. That's actually a way to make quality happen as well, right? They're knowledgeable about their areas, right? Like the folks that are focused on the developer experience, it wouldn't work as well if they spent half their time, making billboards on the highway, right? Like, we want them to be really focused in the ins and outs of that so that they can, help to think about that in all their decisions too.
So when you have designers that are embedded within the product teams, how do you decide the trade-off between, implementing this feature versus designing it this way, and which should be done first, or priorities?
One kind of like mental model I have is that like, I actually don't know if this is a very good saying at all, but it's like reach for the stars, land on the moon a little bit, which is like, I think it really helps for a team to try to get a picture in their mind as to like, what's the ideal experience? What's the 11 out of 10 great experience that we're trying to build for our users' needs? And, usually you can't ship that right away. Usually that's, it's going to take a lot of teams and it's a lot of moving parts. And like, we got to solve this thing tomorrow, right? So like this 11 out of 10, like, is going to be nice, but can't get there. But if you don't know what the 11 out of 10 is, it's hard to know whether or not you're actually facing in the right direction to get there eventually. So I am a big fan of, the designers, the engineers, the product managers that are working on the thing to sketch out, even in really low fidelity, what are we trying to get to, right? And so we can mock things up, obviously, very quickly. You can prototype something, whatever it might be, like however much time you have to like feel it out. It's like, great, that's like what we want. That's the ideal experience. And maybe that's the experience that we'll get to in a year or 2 years, whatever it might be. But then like, what are the stepping stones to that? And then breaking that down into steps. And those steps are helpful in a lot of ways. Number one, you can, take a step a lot faster than you can make that leap onto the star. But you can also test and learn and like know whether or not you're on the right track and that's the right direction. And so it is usually a conversation between the product manager, the engineer, and the designer of like what's feasible, what's the right thing to set the foundation. Actually, that reminds me, like when we talk about quality, one of the other things that I think has been like so important, and I'm really, really grateful for the collaboration that we have like across the standard library team, the product engineers, the design engineers, and the designers working together, is that, quality and that definition I gave earlier, power, craft, and beauty, like you can almost think about it as like, it's got breadth, but it also has depth. Like we will not have a high quality product unless we create a foundation that's strong as well. Like what is actually the architecture of how these products work together? What is the database it's pulling from? Because like if you start with a faulty foundation, just like in a house, like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what color it is. Like it's not gonna, stand up for that, earthquake, and it's not gonna, do well over the test of time. And so we think about quality at all of those levels. So there's like that foundational level, it's the structural level. Then there's, how these products work together. Then of course, eventually you get into thinking about like the affordances, the buttons and the layout, and does like that page actually make sense and like how it's organized. And then, what color it is and the aesthetics, like all those things in the quality stack are going to matter in actually getting it right. So that collaboration, I think, is really important because, the visual designer on the team might not be, the one to, figure out how the product is actually going to be architected at the root, but that is going to, at the end of the day, is going to influence whether or not that is a product that will be well designed.
It reminds me a little bit of like in DevRel, you have the concept of the Millennium Falcon, the Star Wars, where if you want to show someone how to build something, you should show them the Millennium Falcon first of all and be like, look, this is something amazing that you can achieve, and then you give them the building blocks and the instructions on how to put it together.
Yes.
And I always think that's a really compelling way of introducing like a new concept or a new way of building something, right?
Absolutely. Makes total sense. Like if you just threw a bunch of Legos on the table, you'd be like, cool, that'll be fun. And just like, but look what you can build.
Yeah, exactly.
You could build an F1 car out of Legos.
Yeah.
Okay.
What would be a good kind of something easy for developers to take away from, maybe they're building their own front ends and they want it to look nice because they care about it, they want to be intentional, but I think developers have a tendency to kind of skip that bit a little bit, or maybe there's a lack of skill there sometimes, maybe not, but I'll give you an example. If I wanted people on my web application to subscribe, I might just make that button bigger or red or something. And you were saying earlier, you have to think about how it fits in with the rest of the site, right? So what is like a good some tips for our developer audience to take away?
Excellent question. And yes, I think, developer, I think we all have that, tendency. And, it's like, well, I have this goal and I want to like focus in on the goal and I want to make it great for that goal. And also, I would say the other part of it is like skill wise or not, like there's 24 hours in a day. And if you want to write the best code possible, it might not also have enough hours in the day potentially to figure out what the right color of that button is. So I get it. But I think in a part of making those decisions, I think, of course, step number one is to think about the thing in context, as you said, because that like big red button might not make sense among all the other buttons that you have going on and all the other things on the page. And also think about who is your audience? Like, is red going to signal to them negative things, or is that going to signal stop when you mean go, whatever it might be. And you kind of like put yourself in those shoes to really try to understand that. I think I guess when, we think about like any one thing you add or any one thing you change will have a effect on something else. It's either, perhaps like that big red button now actually has made it so noticeable that the rest of the content on the page is now lost. And maybe it's added visual noise that will not allow the other jobs to be done on that page be accomplished. It also, there's definitely, in that particular example, it's just like, well, what feeling are you generating for somebody? Like, does that actually have like a negative, pushy kind of sense to it? And that like, actually, your user's going to push it, but they're going to like be, kind of annoyed and like, find it like, assaulting. Like these, are things you have to look out for. And actually, to that last point, I think part of like understanding the context and understanding the audience is also, what other references might they have? It's like if you put like arrows pointing at the thing, touch this, it's like, well, now all of a sudden that person has an association with like, Vegas casino, everything's over here. And it's like, is that what you want them to take away? And I guess what I'm saying is that there's just so much behind what, those pixels you put on the screen, there's way more to them.
Yeah, you've just paralyzed me with different
sorry, I probably should have stopped long ago.
Just so many things to think about, right? Which is why it's such a talent to be able to make something functional and beautiful, I think. Yeah. What are you most excited about in the next 5 years of Stripe in terms of where the platform might go and how it might look and feel?
Yeah. There's a lot to be excited about. I think, this is it feels so trite to say this because I'm certainly not the first one to say it today, but it's a really exciting time to be alive and to be in the technology space and to, be, building what we build. I think Sessions, which was not too long ago, as I know you were there, we talked a lot about some of the products that we've been working on. And, some of these things have been, kind of years in the making. Is like creating a Stripe platform that really, makes any business feel at home, whether it's like a 2-person startup or a large multi-entity organization, making businesses that feel at home that, they're marketplaces or platforms. And then the real kind of like unlock is like, how do we make money move as seamlessly and easily as we're so accustomed for data to move, right? Like that promise, like I think is like something that I think every Stripe has been really, really interested in fulfilling. And it seems silly. Like why does it take multiple days to get things to move this day and age? And so I'm really thrilled about the number of products that we've been working on and have been bringing out that really just like enable money to move. Like I think we all kind of like intuitively felt it should, and our users certainly do. So like stablecoins plays a big role in that, and I think making money move like instantaneously globally. And I am, both like overwhelmed and ecstatic about, how, new tools powered by AI also enable us to like work differently internally to be able to maybe do more creative and better work even faster, but also like what that can do for our products to like make our products feel more personalized, going back to where we started.
Yeah.
There's many different types of users and they have different needs on any given day. And so if our products can kind of like respond to that and, kind of just like, solve for what you're asking for right when you're asking for it and be even more intuitive or, at the ready, I think is like going to be such an unlock for people to be able to get more out of things faster.
Kind of more opinionated based on who's using them.
Yeah. Well said.
Really interesting way to engage with the platform.
Yeah.
Katie, been really interesting talk. Thanks so much for coming in, spending the time with us today.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate all what you're doing.